That was the stun setting. This is not.
What's up, friends? It's your man Q back out again with another video, and for this one I wanted to kind of do a double whammy, the aspect of doing a lit OP versus matchup while also bringing awareness to the beautiful existence of whole milk as we should know it. We'll get more into this later on. So firstly, this is going to be between Milkman Man from DC and the Leviathan from the Hellraiser series. And you may ask yourself, why the fuck is Leviathan fighting Milkman Man? Well, it's because Leviathan, my boy, has a very lit form, which is mainly like what he uses when he communicates with like lower beings, you know, mortals and such. So I thought it would kind of be a funny interaction in verses. And I also see millennials, like a new wave of millennials, and like, you know, Gen Z and Gen X, just all of them, you know, just lately just been drinking this oat milk, and I've been thinking, like, stop with the oat milk, bro. You need your calcium and like vitamins A and B12 and potassium, some zinc. So I thought I would bring awareness to this with, you know, a good versus. So without further ado, I think we should start with Leviathan. So when aiming to best encapsulate the insane power levels of Leviathan, you know, a verse that basically no one knows about from the power scaling perspective, I had a tough time kind of condensing it, so we are going to be bouncing around here and there with like relevant references from like Cenobites to, you know, Spencer to Leviathan himself, all with the, you know, final aspect of scaling Leviathan as a whole. So let's get started with the Leviathan. As a brief intro, is the infernal master of what we envision as hell, the almighty lord of power to all those who have tried to come before it. Some of the most powerful servants of other hell lords can only but gaze at its potency with pure envy. So, as you may have seen him understandably the most times as, you know, the recognizable diamond-like portrayal. Like this, he rules over hell, or more specifically over the labyrinth, like serving as like a sinister realm of eternal pain and pleasure. Ruling over this, it commands pure chaos as we know it. Serving as the ruler of all of chaos, the Leviathan is able to bring about the twilight of the gods, in other words, simply killing them if compliant. Just through his mere existence, his power brings about all Cenobites, which are his servants of suffering. As it is stated, everyone is but a small clad in its flesh. So let's just like quickly go over the Cenobites' power to show how impressive this is, because like each one is absolute fodder, obviously, to Leviathan. So Cenobites produce music which splits apart universes while like shredding the walls of what is perceived as real and unreal. The music they play is powerful enough to be noticed in various other universes. They can control the workings of eternity while causing like others like damnation. They process power which is beyond reality, as it mends reality on multiple levels. And for shits and giggles, they easily one-shot the existence of Zodiacs. So some Soups fans I know are probably still like unimpressed and confused onto why Leviathan is like a fair matchup fighting Milkman Man, because like they think Milkman Man is like, you know, omnipotent and shit with his hacks in the first place. Don't worry, you know, why he's fighting him will be addressed soon. So the verse Hellraiser contains the Dream Sea, which is the origin of all stories and like container of fiction itself. It serves as a collective unconscious where our own minds simultaneously mingle as we regularly swim through the stories as they wash to the shores. The Dream Sea also contains the Dead Tree Globe, which is a realm on its own of burning frost where every snowflake is unique, never repeated, and all infinite, surpassing heaven and hell itself. And if you just thought I was like capping, here are just some further scans proving its existence, you know, just being like OP shit. Through such a concept, literally Spencer, the, you know, OG Pinhead, pissed in it for fun. So that just brings out his power level for you off like his vanilla base, and we'll build off that. And before we like close in on pure Leviathan material, I want to give some scaling on the classic laminate configuration, which is the puzzle box opened by like dumb fucks who like allow Cenobites to pass through into our world. So firstly, the box has been stated to contain levels of power which are simply indescribable to the strongest Cenobites. A single box holds greater power than the symbols and aspects of Jesus Christ. Heaven is basically fodder in comparison to hell. Like a single box, which there are plenty of, like, are powerful, more powerful than just like Crown of Thorns and such. The box with some cheese scaling is able to reach an effect the editor himself if he uses a stupid ass and chooses to open it, shown at the bottom of the forward page. And alongside this portal creation, the boxes allow its victims, like the editor, to be put through a perpetual cycle of suffering and rebirth, which is kind of like their main purpose in the end. Okay, so now entering the Drip Milkman territory. The Leviathan was the only entity strong enough to convince Elliot Spencer to end his agony and amp him into becoming Pinhead in the first place. This again was the base Spencer who was able to take a fat, casual piss in the Dream Sea. Spencer, when he was done with like Leviathan's bullshit throughout the years, pulled the stupid and decided to rebel. To do this, he gathered all possible energy to exist that may have any involvement remotely relating to pain, which is like a shitload of stuff. And with this, he had ascended to becoming God, even gaining continuous amps after this, proceeding to tell Leviathan to pull up when he was done. Keep in mind again, base Spencer made the Dream Sea his bitch, so in short, Leviathan, I'd say much greater than Ascended Spencer, who's much greater than base Spencer, who's greater than Dream Sea, greater than Fiction, question mark? Yeah, I know. The cheese, bro. People are sleeping Hellraiser. So with, this power, Spencer, unsurprisingly, wasn't all talk and no game, as he was about to wipe out all of existence. However, Leviathan gave zero shits, and if anything was taunting Spencer on his petty attempts to harm him, as nothing he could do could really, from his perception in the universe, could harm Leviathan. While Spencer would crush his physical manifestation as the diamond. In return, Leviathan said, hush child, and easily one-shot Spencer into a little memory ball of suffering. Lastly, the Leviathan is an S++ tier mindfucker, of course. This could be ranging from running simulations for Cotton, where her life never truly existed, and her childless fodder who never really grew up. Or perhaps running around in Cotton's head after she became a stronger Cenobite, and unknowingly what she thought were her own genuine thoughts were all but his. When she was trying to formulate her own plan, but it was just him inside her mind tinkering. Or he changed Spencer's perception about the fate of his family, which led to his current path of what Leviathan wished, to be the case for him. Or he can rapidly, fire you or multiple people through illusions of their past life traumas to the point where you don't, fully perceive what the fuck is going on. So, yes, that is the Leviathan for you, with some Milkman drip. And he will be fighting Milkman Man from DC, who we will cover now. So, I believe Milkman Man doesn't need as big of a briefing compared to Leviathan, since, Milkman Man is a little bit more well known. So, let's just start off with, him being from Final Heaven, which is the main setting within the comic. All stories that are hinted at are being told from Final Heaven. It's kind of the waypoint where all stories are being kind of initially created. For example, where Magna Con striking deals with people in Final Heaven, dealing with retcons. There's a heavy retcon theme within the storyline, as you'll see. The God of Ideas descended from Final Heaven, as the ideas of justice on Earth Prime were the main inspirations for their creation. Alongside this, their milk can alter Earth Prime and the universe based on their Trinity and how it wants it to be. The Trinity is a trio of timeless ideas, in short. Milkman is accused of accidentally protecting a corpse that is manipulating the lives or stories of comic characters. Milkman is a weaponized version of the story of Superman, which is pretty impressive. descended from the god of all superheroes, injected with retcon narratives. In probably one of his most famous panels, Milkman Man realizes he's a copy of the story of Soups, used to keep people drinking the milk that controls the narrative of comics. And of course, you can't be, real like Superman without his powers. He's got his laser vision, his super strength, his super speed, and no one could even see him moving, when he dipped. The milk is used to make DC Comics easier to sell in the future, as retcon works for beings that are beyond their conception. And lastly, the team that he beefed with was with beings that were trying to convince them that they are powerless as comic book characters to begin with. So kind of in a greater sense of things they were fighting for, which is fairly impressive. And that's kind of just the rough idea of the Milkman Man storyline. So, taking both into account, I know the Leviathan section was significantly longer, and I apologize to any Milkman Man fans, but, it's not really my fault. It's just that the Leviathan had 10 times the amount to cover, or, maybe this got a bigger run for Milkman Man before, he just gets reset by Universal Retcon. But, yeah, if we're being, straightforward, they're obviously both argued to be out-of-versal into various layers, depending on who you're talking about. But on one end, if we're getting more specific, Milkman Man is going to get absolutely violated for several reasons. So, a couple things I kind of want to go over with Milkman Man. Some people think he's the most powerful iteration who haven't read it, and some things get on my nerves with the reasoning. So, one of my first issues with many arguments and kind of, scalings with Milkman Man that they like to use is dealing with how the comic portrays the map of the multiverse and kind of its petty nature, be it a coffee stand for, when they're working and such. In short, it's, as it states, a map of the main multiverse, which is surrounded by, the more impressive section of the Infinite Void, more so known as the Overvoid, as it amounts to nothing in the Overvoid, as could be stated within this Lucifer scan. There's obviously a lot more context to the map that's kind of not really addressed with a lot of people. It's obviously only really including what's inside and then kind of leaving the rest up to interpretation. We could say, for example, people like to wank this, but this has happened on several other occasions where kind of, I feel, has just been ignored. Let's say it's been done with Mixie, which, yes, Mixie is extremely broken, but I don't see that feat used too often. Or also even Batman Who Laughs, pre The Darkest Night, when he was still prepping and you could see him with all of his equipment. You could see the little map of the multiverse right there. So it doesn't mean he's above, everything. That could just grant kind of a multiversal perspective on things, from the DC's perspective. Discussing the DC multiverse in terms of Milkman Man and his relation to the Retcon Corps, and where that places, it is clearly would be limbo. And that might be disappointing to some, since it technically doesn't naturally even reach monitor level. But it doesn't mean it's not out-of-versal. It's still extremely powerful. But it's definitely not, Source Wall or reaches Overvoid, breaches past all of that. Dealing with some arguments that could be made about Milkman Man, there's a good scan of Animal Man, which could relate to the DC multiverse, which is, canon now, luckily. Where, let's say, nearly Final Heaven being outside of all things except one within the scan. Limbo is also stated to be the same exact position, but you may say the Retcon Corps can hijack fictional realities, which is one of its best arguments, or one of the best sounding ones. Everything is fictional in Limbo. It doesn't matter. Even things ideas, concepts, characters that were either left behind or weren't written are just left in limbo. This could relate to characters written out of existence popping up in Final Heaven, which should match perfectly with Limbo. Characters, being written out of existence or left behind. And lastly, just wanted to address that cheese scan of him basically looking at his comics and, you know, realizing where he was, like thinking like some people think he's like above like his fictional narratives and like because of that like the overvoid status. And this isn't obviously the case because after this, like, why is he physically interacting later on with like Batman or Wonder Woman? Obviously, would this make everyone like above fiction and the overvoid? No, because like we could just say it's limbo. Like the entire multiverse is a comic book there. Like it literally encompasses all physical realities of the multiverse, as well as the sphere of gods and Speed Force, everything below it basically. And like there's near like endless possibilities to that point. So it can be hard to scale, but you can't really like wank too hard. And to kind of give it a big kind of fat L, to be honest, we gotta give to Milkman Man, is that he was wiped. He was one shot by the retcon Prime Universe button, Universal Destruction. So that's rough. Apart from this though, on like the grand scheme of things, on where he sits like comfortably, I would more so than not, I would be generous and say maybe like low Outerversal on average, especially with how DC is evolving. Because we know like Sphere of Gods, let's say like where Apocalypse resides, if we want to really put Apocalypse in this category, is fucking insane right now. He obviously bypasses where he currently sits in terms of like power, but obviously Milkman Man doesn't have as many feats, bare to none, and it's a lot of speculation for like an area that doesn't even pass the monitor sphere, so it's kind of tough to make an interpretation, and kind of being wiped out during the Prime Earth was a little rough. Now compare this to the Leviathan, where he's doing certain things like smirking, taunting, and one-shotting an ascended godhood Spencer, who was basically through his, you know, absorption of pain through all of existence, was about to one-shot it, and was kind of ascended through the idea of heaven and hell, which is transcendental in nature. And this is past even base Spencer, who pissed in the dream sea like it was nothing. So basically, we have Leviathan sitting well above us, you know, the ascended Spencer, who was well above Spencer, who is well above the Dream Sea, which is ridiculous. And I think if we're being fairly rational here, based on like the statements and standpoints, that just this alone should make just base Spencer easily Outerversal. And with this, we haven't even addressed what that would do to upscale the Leviathan into however many layers into Outerversal. A fair chunk. Because Ascended Spencer already does that for him, and Leviathan one-shot him like it was nothing. I was talking with a good friend, Jobbers and Goons, that Pennywise versus Leviathan would be a good match down the line, since we honestly think that power-wise they might be a good match. But yeah, that's how broken I think it is. And on the other side, we have Milkman Man, who honestly, if we're being nice, we can stretch him to maybe Outerversal, probably low outer. It's just, he's lacking feats, he's in limbo, we got all the context, and the Prime Universe button erasure just really hurts him. You know, he doesn't really have any supporting arguments that really work, in my opinion, and it's just rough. Honestly, if you're looking for a more powerful version that actually based on like raw feats, use the current death metal Superboy Prime, in my opinion, because I feel Milkman Man just gets, you know, pinky stomped by Leviathan if Leviathan just gets, you know, serious. But yeah, that's it. They still in the end both serve some nice tasty milk, high in calcium, stopping that oat milk craze nowadays. But yeah, I hope you enjoy this with a nice glass of milk, and until next time, friends, peace.